Hi, I'm Caroline from Intersoft Systems, and today's video is how to search in FinPower Connect Cloud. Before we get started, it is important to note that the appearance of my FinPower Connect Cloud and yours will likely be different. This is due to the numerous customization options available and potentially different licensing options, but the core elements should be able to be followed. There are two different places you can search from in FinPower Connect Cloud. The first is the search bar up the top, which may or may not be present depending on your cloud configuration settings. The second is the quick search function, available from the side menu and is represented by the magnifying glass icon. Next to the word quick search, you'll find a little tooltip here, and if you click on it, it provides some good examples on how the searching works. For example, you can search by phone, mobile, or email in the format shown below, so no space is entered for the mobile number and the full address for the email addresses. For address, you can search using the first line of an address. Date of birth, you can enter one date or a range up to a 12-month maximum. Name, you usually need a minimum of 4 characters, although 3 will do, and the search will look for the first, middle, and surnames. You can also search for security details such as registration numbers or serial numbers, and you can search for things throughout FinPower Connect Cloud such as reporting options and menu options. There is also a help page for searching, which is accessible by clicking this little blue question mark over to the right hand side here. We click on that and you can see there is a wee help page that details some more of the same information. The main quick search will search all records, but the quick search has different tabs across the top that allow you to narrow the search fields down by type, which is useful if you're searching for a client by name so that it excludes accounts with the same names as well from the results list. We'll review each tab, but first we'll go over some searching tips. Some of this functionality has been introduced with Quick Search 2 and may not be available in older versions of FinPower Connect Cloud. If you search for something like a report name, you'll see how some of the handy hints can be useful. For example, if we do a search for account list, you'll notice several results returned, basically anything with the words account and list. Whereas if we add quotation marks around it, and search again, you'll see that the only item returned this time is the account list report that we're actually looking for. If you wanted to search for a menu item, such as run account processes, you can, and it'll find a link to it for you, or potentially more than one, as is the case with this database, where you can access this from the main menu or the processes view, as you can see. Searching for a name, there are two ways, again with or without quotation marks as well. If we search for Max on its own, we get the following results, just one Max Lee, whereas if we add some quotation marks in here, it's going to search through and find anything with a Max in it, so we can see our Maxwell, Maxine, and so on as well. Moving on to the Accounts tab, you can search for an account name if you know it, and using the quotation marks you'll receive a list of account-only results. So, for example, Devon Shop Limited, we get a list of the accounts with an account name, or the account ID itself if you know it, and the external ID if you have one, which brings up this account here. On the Application tab, you can search for things like the applicant's last name, a date of birth, mobile or email, or the application ID. On the Client tab, you can search using the client ID, date of birth, mobile, email, etc. So if we use date of birth as an example, we'll receive a list of clients with that date of birth. If you're searching by email, you do need to include the full email address, and it will find records where that address has been saved, even if it's not the current email. So if we put in our example here, in search, you can see 4 results returned. But it doesn't actually look like this particular email matches what we searched for. But if we open up this client record, have a quick look at the contact details page and click show hidden results, you can see that this is a previous email of this client as well. So just something to be aware of. Going back to our search view, you can also search for a driver's license number if you have it, and if you click on that specific tab, it will only search for that field, which may improve speed and return better results. The specific date of birth tab as well has the option to add an additional last name. So if we search for that same date of birth that we had before and added a surname of Smith, that narrows that right down and finds just the one result. In the Security tab, if you select the serial number, registration or VIN option, you can type in a registration number. So if we use our example plate ABC123 for an example, we can see that there's currently 3 separate security statements in our list here that have this license plate attached in this database currently. On the PPSR tab, you can search for the PPSR registration number should you have one. Like if we search for this example here, and it will give us the link to the record for that particular security statement. Workflows can be searched for by code. So for example, if we search for this particular workflow here, it opens the workflow record straight away for you, which in this case is a loan origination workflow. Back to our search view now. Our final option here is quick lists, and they provide a preset list of limited searches for some handy items such as recently added accounts or recently declined applications. Clicking on a quick list will take you straight to the list of results. And as you can see at the top, you can opt to only include My Records to further limit the list, which is really handy if you're hunting for an account that you've just added to further limit the results. You just tick that and click Run again, and it will return only the ones added by the logged in user. Now briefly onto the main search bar. Whether this appears or not, again as I mentioned earlier, is determined by a setting in the cloud configuration. If enabled, the search bar will search all results with no filters, same as the main quick search function. In addition, there is an option to show options while the user types, which means it searches as you're typing and makes suggestions. So you could search for a license plate and the following suggestion would appear. Again, it's the same 3 results that we saw before. Or you could type in a name and again get the same suggestion. These suggestions can be clicked on and they will open the record for you, like so. This concludes our video on how to search in FinPower Connect Cloud. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact your Intersoft dealer or application support.